गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। Today we're going to discuss about China, the two-speed state. And it's very simple. You look at this thumbnail of mine, I've given you the two speeds. The high-speed growth, which involves technology, innovation, exports, infrastructure, and global leadership. On the other hand, there's a China which is slow and struggling. It's got a property crisis which is ongoing. It's got a huge debt crisis, youth unemployment, weak consumption, and local government debt. And we're going to talk of that today, plus a few more things. And the common perception that China won the Iran war, was the biggest beneficiary of the Iran war, and China can do anything it wants, is not valid. I've never felt that it was valid, but today we're going to see. And the latest figures which are coming out of China are not encouraging to say. Okay, let me give you anecdotally something which someone told me long back. It's important that when you're building a tall building, you have a good foundation. Or, when you're trying to go up, the trapdoor doesn't open underneath you. What you gain, you can't lose, and if that happens, the gain, the pluses and the minuses put together, then you're at zero. And I don't think today China is at net positive. It's doing hell of a lot in its high speed growth, that track, but it's not doing that well the other side. So I think largely things are getting cancelled, and that's the problem, and that we need to realize. And how do we deal with it? Of course, that's the next part is how do you deal with it? Okay, let's get going. First and foremost, suddenly China has taken off on a few issues. They fired a ballistic missile, a submarine-launched ballistic missile, just about a day or two back, somewhere in the Western Pacific. And they've gone all, I would say, ballistic, if that's a word I can use. It's also given out footage of a DF-17 missile, hypersonic missile launch. It's just made it viral. Then it's carried out the ground test of a hypersonic ramjet, right, and publicized it. And it's also given out some glimpses of a sixth generation fighter. A lot of indications of its missile prowess, hypersonic, this, that, and all that, plus the fact that it has fired a missile off a nuclear submarine. Now, from what news one gets, it is a dummy warhead. Okay, and it's a clear demonstration. Now, that's the fast part of the story. What's the slow part of the story? The second speed or the reverse gear is this: 6 more generals have been sacked. I mean, they call it anti-corruption. We know what's happening. And also the news is that Xi Jinping is weighing whom to appoint to the CMC or not. There are names floating around. There's obviously something happening. So there is that part of the story. And there are issues with the CCP itself. Right? One can't put a finger, but when you read certain things which are coming out through mainstream sources, their mainstream sources, then you get the feeling that, look, there is something. But then that's how China is. Something is always happening. Like in India, something is always happening. But what's interesting there is this two-speed story. Okay, that's the interesting thing about this whole affair. And again, Nikkei Asia comes out with this article which says India is catching up on China's arsenal with focus on long-range weapons. And this has come out in the CIPRI report. So China can't be very happy about this whole affair. And take into consideration that we are into a defense cooperation with Japan, and we are also today we've sealed a deal for the BrahMos with Indonesia. BrahMos is already there in the Philippines. So China can't be very comfortable about it. So we'll see which speed it takes in that direction. But let's get to something else. There's an article which came out. Why did I get this two-speed story? Because there's an article which says the Chinese government has called together advisors to fix their two-speed economy officially. They realize where they are. It is not as if they don't know that what they're happening. They know their problems, but are unable to fix them. So they put together a whole lot of people and they are trying to fix their economy. Will it happen? That's the question. In my opinion, it won't happen. And I follow Michael Pettis very closely because he is in Tsinghua University and he writes well and is one of the renowned economists globally. So, what does he say? I mean, this is interesting. As per Bloomberg, a handful of former and current advisors have urged authorities to correct the imbalance between a strong production and a weak demand. And this was official in a event in one of the some conference. So strong production and weak demand. That's the two-speed thing. What does Michael Pettis say? He says surging debt will eventually force China to correct the imbalance, and perhaps sooner than it might hope. But if that correction doesn't happen through higher consumptive growth, which it will not happen, it must happen through lower production growth. That's just arithmetic. So, will that lower production growth happen? Because if that happens, then you're looking at a collapse in the Chinese GDP. It won't. Not the way Chinese are doing things. They're in fact exporting more. They're trying to export their way out of trouble. Will they be successful in doing so? We'll see. That's what the whole thing is. They've been successful. Germany is in a lot of problems because of this. We have not got into that, so we should be careful about it. Okay, whatever happened in during Ops Snow Leopard in that time, and that press note number 3, which we gave out, where we restricted Chinese investment into India and buying shares in our companies and all that, has stood us in good stead. Yeah, we do import a lot. We are still have an adverse trade balance with them, but we are not suffering the way others are suffering. Right? We need to handle this well. But then China is not able to export its way out of trouble also. It's still in trouble. Now, let me put together bits and pieces of the Chinese economy which is in trouble. Where and the whole, I've given you the macro picture. I'll give you the small parts, which then you put together and you get the bigger picture. Now, there's a Chinese think tank which estimates that the number of flexible people in flexible employment, otherwise we call them gig workers, right? Those are the guys who don't have a permanent full-time contract, gig workers. They have risen from 320 million last year to, they've risen from 280 million last year to 320 million this year. 320 million people are on part-time jobs. That's 44% of China's workforce. Remember, the population might be 1.2, 1.3 billion, but the workforce is not that much. The workforce is just about a billion or even lesser, much lesser than billion. Take the aged out. Aged is about 25%. The young people out. So what you're left is just about 800 million people in the workforce, 700 to 800, out of which 44% are in permanent or semi-permanent jobs. Not even semi-permanent, they're gig workers, right? And this gig economy of China is a crucial employment buffer because the property crisis has wiped out not only household savings, it has wiped out jobs, construction jobs, manufacturing, everything. A lot of sectors have been hit, right? And a lot of people, the factories have shed workers through automation, AI, cost cutting, tariffs, and all that. So the internal story in China is not very good. And see this. This is the figures from 2019 to 2026. 7 years. In 7 years, from 160 million people who were gig workers, it has gone to 320 today. What is 320? 320 is the entire population of USA. It's like one entire population of USA is working as gig economy in China. That's not great. That's not great by any set of standards. That's the slow track. Okay. And then in this AI era, all the workers are getting worried that they'll be optimized out of a job. So the economy, it might be big, it might be booming. I won't say booming. Manufacturing must be booming. Production is high. Technology is high. All that. People, people make a nation. If those people are not there, then there's a problem. Okay, that's the point. And this is a new trend. This I got day before yesterday. So people who don't have jobs go and sit in Communist Party common, facilities. The Communist Party in China has created common facilities where a guy can go and work and sit and do something whatever he wants, and exchange notes, talk, and all that. So this article, if you read in South China Morning Post, it says people go there, sit down, open their computer, appear as if they're working, and do nothing. So the Communist Party centers have become uh, lounges for the China's unemployed. They have nothing, nowhere else to go. They have to do something, isn't it? They have to go out of the house, show as if they're doing something, all that. Nothing, zero. Okay. Now, then the debt. Here is the interesting bit. Officially, the debt is at one level. Unofficially, the debt is at a higher level. Why? Local governments have hidden their debts. That is off books. No one knows what it is. How to square it, no one seems to be knowing. Right? And they have artificially inflated figures, and they're hidden their debt balances. And this is coming out because the Chinese central government is also trying. How much can they square up debt? So they've carried out an audit. In that audit, it has come out that people are hiding. The auditors have not said how much they've been hidden. They know it's being hidden, but they don't know how much. That's the thing, right? It has not come out in only South China Morning Post, even in Caxin. And a lot of rural funds have been given into debt. So what does it tell you? What does it tell you? It's not as if China is going to collapse tomorrow, right? It's not as if they're going to find this thing. Look, okay, there's a question. Aryan Shah says, one thing I notice about China is they find a solution to their own problem. I agree with you. I'll show you what the solution they found out. Not being disrespectful, but if we can give a developed country this advice, why can't we take our advice and use it? I agree with you. I'm not saying, look, please understand, I'm not here to compare China with India. You guys must get it clear. I'm here to study China so that we know how to deal with it. I'm a defense specialist. I study China's economy from a security perspective. I need to know how strong or weak China is. I'm not giving prescriptions for India. And I'm not interested in how China solves its problems. I don't give solutions to the Chinese. You do this, you do this. All I'm saying is how weak is this. Because tomorrow we go to war, we should know how strong China is or not. Please understand. See, when you come to my channel, this is the perspective I give you. I'm not comparing myself with China. When I compare myself with China, I'll make it specific. This is what we have done, this is what we have not done. Okay? Please understand that. Please understand that part of the story. Why I make certain statements and why I don't give prescription. China should have done this. I'm not bothered. From my side, if they continue doing this, it's good. China is weak. Understand this. Okay, so we are looking at this part of the story. Let's get ahead. And China is not able to pull out of this because um its fiscal space is weak. It's not done it. They say that they'll do it, but they're not done it. What is fiscal space? Injecting money directly into the system, into the hands of the people. Direct benefit transfer and things like that. Not done. And all these are coming out from things like Action and Sochana Morning Post, which are their flagship portals. Why China's fiscal spending is shrinking despite a proactive pledge. China has pledged. So, but then it's not so. See this negative infusion of capital into the system. It is their charts. So I'm reading that. Okay. And another issue, their debt loans with the Chinese banks are giving out have been fallen. See the loans here and see the loans here. And of course, here you say corporate loans, household loans, this loan, that loan, all that. I'm not getting into that. But overall, if you see the way the loans have gone down, loans tell you whether I have to take loan to build a factory, to run a business, whatever. Okay, unless you are doing a gig economy like I'm doing, this is gig. I have nothing better to do. I need money, so I do a YouTube channel. It's not permanent. It's my own little small thing. That's okay. But just think, if everyone is doing the same thing in a country, trying to earn money off the net, doing these small jobs, and everyone isn't endowed with getting money off the net, or or lifelong you want to do delivery. This is the problem. And here is a country which is not taking enough loans or giving enough loans. Loans make businesses and things like that. What is FDI? FDI is fundamentally a loan investment. So there's a problem there. And then this graph has been on all over the social media in the past 1 week. China's real estate, as per this, has erased all gains of the last 20 years. It is where it has started or gone below that. So it tells its own story where this country has moved. The real estate doesn't affect the national exchequer. It affects the people's exchequer. If I have a flat and that I paid X, today the value is X minus 50 or 50%, then my spending power is gone. It's gone. You're not catching up with inflation. Inflation is happening on its own. In China, it's deflation. I'll come to that. But no one is interested. This is it. China is grappling with the longest deflation streak in a decade. Okay, and this has come from the Chinese sources. Look at this deflation. So, how can China be strong? Externally, there's something, internally, there's something. So, what does it tell you? It tells you how you deal with China. Will a country with this kind of a thing go in for a war? Very difficult. Will it undertake a offensive action? No. It wants to trade. And that is why it wants to trade. That is why it says, I want to do more trade with you. Forget about the border, we'll trade. He's not interested in settling the border one way or the other. but he wants you to trade with him and put you in an unfavorable situation. Fine, you trade with him. You have to trade with him because you have already a huge. Your China is one of your biggest trading partners. But can you get a better deal out of it? If you know this, that's the point. Okay, car sales slowing down because why? The market is crowded. Every fellow wants to make EVs. There's another thing in China which is called bedchal. In Hindi, it is called bedchal. One thing starts, a good thing going, everyone goes into that. They leave the rest of the thing. So as a result, what happens? That market becomes overcrowded, overheated, and it collapses. Simple. It's happening. It's happened. Okay, and I'll explain this a little later. Same, do or die for small car makers. I mean, if 156 models are what you're going to get in a year, every day you get out, every alternate day you get out a new model. People are spoiled for choices. They'll never decide what to do. If new model is the mantra and every second day there's a new model, as a buyer, I'll be confused. They're very fundamentals. Why is this happening? Because competition and price cutting, all that involution. We have spoken of it. Nijuan. China's EV deliveries remain stuck in downward spiral. See, the problem is that it's not that China is not exporting; they're exporting. Okay, they're exporting, but internally they're not able to sell. If they're internally not able to sell, the guys who are making it want to sell somewhere or the other. So they're cutting prices because this competition, which is internal, is now going external. External means price cut, get subsidy, whatever, which means not enough profit. So China might be selling hell of a lot, but not making enough profit. That is something which we don't understand. That is why you see there's no CPC2 and all that. CPC2 people talk. Okay, Pakistan, Shahbaz Sharif went there and all that, and that's about all. Okay, and they said we'll do CPC2 and all. CPC1 ही शुरू नहीं होता, 2 कहाँ से शुरू होगा? वो ही खत्म नहीं हुआ. There's this guy called Noah's opinion. He has explained in this article. I would recommend everyone read it. Those of you who are interested in following China well. China did not manage to avoid a crash. Why is this? A lot of people say, look, China had a property problem. They had a huge property bubble. When a similar bubble happened in USA collapsed. 2008 financial crisis. Okay, Bear Stearns, May, all that just collapsed. We know that. We know that story. But China didn't collapse. This property bubble started coming in 2001, 21, 22. It's still going on. It's not collapsed. It's still coming out with GDP. It is not affected. People say, oh, then it's a success story. That's like what a guy asked earlier, isn't it? But Noah says, no, it doesn't happen. And the reason is very simple. It's this. When you read through the whole thing, it's not Noah's opinion. Even some part he is given, some part I picked from others. China has a bubble replacement strategy. This is the interesting part. Something new I'm telling you. So I thought through it and have written a few points. Let me read it so that you understand it. Whenever China faces an economic shock, it uses direct control over the banking system to push banks to lend more. So there's a problem, banks lend more, not necessarily into that sector, into some other sector. Okay. Each economic shock is countered by setting a new investment bubble. Okay. Post 2009, there was a collapse in China's current account deficit. It collapsed from 10% to 3% of GDP. How did they balance it? They started the infrastructure bubble. 2019, infrastructure and property. Right? Now the point is that if China put its money in infrastructure, more infrastructure and all that, it would have been a great story. If China had not invested in enough in infrastructure till then, but China had already invested heavily into infrastructure by 2019. Over and above that, they created this bubble because they are an investment-driven economy. So if it's an investment-driven economy, they put more into infrastructure and property. As a result, that went into a bubble. You can't keep absorbing infrastructure and real estate uh, properties. Okay, stock, real estate stock, you can't keep absorbing it endlessly. That's it, right? So, but 2009 onwards, when they started this surge into investment and property, it led to speculation, price rise, and that bubble started building up. And then, of course, 21, 22, there was a sharp contraction. Evergrande and all these big guys started falling. Now, the moment that started happening, see, that's why the Chinese have been smart. So the Chinese have set off a bubble in the manufacturing sector. Take off. So they started investment in manufacturing. You see this starting around 21, 22, 23. High-tech production and this and that, which Xi Jinping has been saying, dual circulation. Dual circulation started when? COVID time, China 2025, all those things started. So technology and things like that. Now that's going into a bubble of kinds. Okay. EVs, batteries, and all these are going, solar panels, exports, manufacturing is in a problem today. So what is the new bubble? AI. AI, high-tech space, this is the new bubble. And it's not as if China is the only one in the bubble, AI bubble. The whole world is in AI bubble. We don't know which side it's going to go. So it's a high-risk phenomenon. The problem for China is twofold. Too much of AI is at the cost of jobs. Very simple. That they themselves are saying, right? Too much of AI, robots, and all is at the cost. First, and it costs. You have to put money into it. And they don't see return on investment. Okay, the world will probably accept ChatGPT or Gemini or all those other things, Grok and all. But how many people will go for DeepSeek? The profitability is an issue for China. This will play out in the long run. So China has been jumping bubble to bubble to bubble and bubble. How long will it continue? Okay, it might succeed even now, but what's the next bubble? That's the point, and it'll be interesting to see because then China is only being skipping over the line every time, and that creates its own vulnerability. Remember, China at the end of the day is completely everything is all about politics. You have to be clear about that. Okay. Now, how bad things are, look at this article. Again, this is South China Morning Post, which says retailers bet on their own brands in China. For example, if you're a retailer, you would like to sell three types of, brands in your shop. But in China, the trend line today is a, a retail chain wants to make its own brands and sell it. They're not accepting from others, which means they're going to kill the others. And they're doing their own trick. There's a new trend which has started. Why do these things start? It's very clear. Consumption is weak. So the guy who's got the chain, the retail chain, he says, I'll make my own thing and sell. Why should I keep someone else's? So again, it pushes all branded retailers abroad. And you're flooding the export market. Okay. So sooner or later, those prices will fall. Those prices fall. All those branded items, their profits will fall. It's a cycle which is happening. And this cycle is happening one to the other to the other. And Ken Shaw says, look, the brick and mortar firms in China are collapsing. They're just vanishing, right? It's the consumers. Okay. What he says is if consumers are shifting from brick and mortar shops onto online purchases, then it's okay. But even online sales are collapsing. And that's what YCC Macro, which is a Chinese site, it says Chinese deliveries boom is losing steam. The volumes are not increasing; they're going down. So you see that the internal state is pretty bad, and this is what constantly keeps China back. Why will China never become a superpower? Because there's some force holding it back internally. Because China creates a success, and that success breeds a problem. He spoke a lot about de-dollarization. He says it's hit a wall. Of course, there are enough people who are saying no, de-dollarization will happen and yuan is surging and all that. So this is, you can look both ways, the way I look at it. But overall, I doubt. The only problem here, of course, is USA can hit a self goal. If USA hits a self goal, then people will go more towards the yuan. But if yuan is internally weak, you're going to see something happen. As simple as that. Okay. Now, look at property. Everyone says property is coming out, property coming out. No. Evergrande, they're trying to resuscitate it or sell it off and all. It's not happening. As a result, the shares are going down. So Evergrande still remains one of the biggest property dealers because the people who are paid and they want their thing back, things are to finish, whatever it is, it's a problem. Land sales are plunging, 66% plunge in land sales. It's not funny. Okay. And this was one of the biggest earners for the local governments. Now, I said in the beginning, local governments are in debt. They can't repay the debt unless they sell land. They're not able to. So, where's the money? Where is the debt? Okay. See the year on year revenue growth of listed real estate companies. See the thing. This is a state owned private. The private is in a bad shape. This red line is private. This is state owned. State owned means, in public sector real estate companies, they'll thrive. They'll thrive. How does it matter them? Because the state will fund them, state will buy, they're building for the state, and the state will subsidize them. China will not let their state enterprises go down. Because if they go down, China will go down. So it's very simple. Then, of course, population. Population is coming to a head. Population, the story is coming more difficult and more difficult and more difficult. All kinds of things are now. You see, when I started speaking of population, people laughed at me. Okay, I'm not going to have a last laugh. I don't have to do analysis because others are doing analysis. I'm very sanguine about it. 2030, 4 years from now, you'll see that fun. You'll see this graph extended where it is. See, you'll see China's population has gone down, but the births will go down even further. Old people will go up. It's almost a standard rut. I can keep talking. Those figures are in my head, I can keep talking. But now it's not I who's talking to convince you. Everyone is talking of this population drop. And it started affecting people. Maybe one day I'll go back and start studying this population thing. Today I saw a very interesting article which is China's population can't be more than 800 to 900 million. If that is so, and he's given maths out. I've not been able to check out. Sometime back, but 3 months back, Lee's Real Talk, she also spoke about this. I've not done the maths. I've not been able to check it out, but I will one of these days. I'll do some maths and put it up and let's discuss it. Right? And yeah, this chap, Yi Fuxian, He's also come out with the theory. He says, look, the China's population may be 100 million less, 200 million less, but whatever it is, the population is dodgy and the whole population is declining. And nations are about people, they're not about robots, they're not about economy. It is you and I who make the economy or everything. The robot, cannot replace you. It can automate some jobs, but it can't replace you. China is trying that. Now, when China tries that, they might replace a person gone, but he needs another job. So there's a huge imbalance, and this will find. See, the immigrant labor in China is not Han Chinese. They're coming from Tibet, Xinjiang, and out Mongolia and other places. If they go jobless, they're going to be restive in the far-flung areas. Will we see that? Are we seeing that? Have we already started seeing that? The first things will come out from Tibet. Watch. The first problems will come out from Tibet in the form of something else. I've not got my finger on it, but I'll talk of it one of these days. When I get my clarity in my thought about it, I'll talk. Of course. And then, of course, most interesting, China's millionaire population grows slower than global average. Is the wealth boom over? Right? Their millionaire population is growing like any other country, but the slow down. So wealth tiny. So what do you do? What does China do? That's the question. What does China do? So you see in this whole story which I've spun to you today, very clearly, China has a two-speed system. It's a two-speed economy. It's a two-speed military. But there's only one speed in its population, which is going downhill. They're now recoverable, and it is irreversible. Everyone has said, you put AI, you put China, you put everything together, and say population 3-child policy, 2-child policy. It's not reversible. Real estate is not going to be reversed. Consumption is, if population keeps going down, consumption won't reverse. So what happens? How belligerent will China be? China can fire all its missiles. How can it? Right. So there is a major issue in this whole story which is happening. Right? I thought I'll put this with across all of you. How do we deal with it? That's the question. Because we have a lot of problems with China. Yesterday also I spoke about China. That's a strategic dilemma. Do we focus on the border? Do we focus on our maritime lines of communication? Do we, do trade with China? Do we handle China through Pakistan and Bangladesh, like our neighbors? Right? Where are we in relation with other countries to handle China? Are we on a solid footing ourselves? So these are the questions which will come to mind. And you can't handle China unless you're strong. Are you strong? The last 3 months, the economy is, the numbers don't tell you the true story, but the numbers show that the Indian economy has weakened. But equally, in the past 3-4 days, I see articles coming where money is getting back into India. Okay, money is getting back into India. And I mean, there are things happening. So we are also in a state of flux. How are we going to stabilize out? Maybe 2 months more, we'll stabilize. Stabilize we will. I have no doubt about it. I have confidence in us. It doesn't matter which government is in power, which party is in power. We'll stabilize. Because unlike China, we don't fudge figures the way China does. We don't fudge figures. We're rather open system. You can't hide. And ours is a pretty open democracy. We might be far from perfect democracy, but democracy to hai